Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. We have a really interesting topic today. And I know I say that a lot because I think all of the topics are super interesting, but this one is going to be next level. And the topic we're speaking about today is ancestral clearing for intergenerational trauma. And we have a wonderful expert on the podcast today, Elizabeth Kipp, who is going to be sharing all of her insights. Many of us are unaware that we carry the gifts and the burdens of our ancestors. Those who realize this may not realize there are ways to release the negative effects of unresolved trauma in the lineage. By doing this as part of a holistic approach to healing, we can then better connect back to our authentic self and more easily fulfill our potential. Elizabeth Kipp is a stress management and holistic trauma specialist who uses trauma trained and yoga informed addiction recovery coaching, ancestral clearing, compassionate inquiry, and yoga to help people with their healing. She is healed from over 40 years of chronic pain, including anxiety, panic attacks, and addiction. Now in long term recovery, she guides others to unleash their healing power, find freedom from suffering, and live a thriving life. She's also the best-selling author of The Way Through Chronic Pain, Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. Thank you so much for joining us today, Elizabeth.
Well, thank you so much, Harmony. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, me too. And as I mentioned, I cannot wait to jump into this topic. But before we do, I have a few rapid inspiration questions for you, just so we get to know you a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
And it has nothing to do with trauma or what we're speaking about. But the first one is, what's the most unconventional or unexpected thing on your bucket list?
On my bucket list.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. I have to think about that for a minute.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it?
I think I'd like to visit the Taj Mahal someday.
Yeah, nice. Yes, definitely on my bucket list too. It's so beautiful. The pictures look so beautiful. I haven't been there myself. So.
I just think the energy in there would be, I mean, it's not the only beautiful sacred space on the planet, but it's one that I've kind of seen since I was a little girl and thought, ooh, I've just kind of been drawn into that space. So
yeah, beautiful. And what is your favorite food and why?
Oh, well, whatever I'm eating right now.
You'll go with anything.
It used to be chocolate, but I've actually, I don't know, my taste buds have changed or the requirements of my body have changed, or something's different now. And I'm not really a sweet person anymore.
Yeah.
I've actually gotten quite fond of just nice, clean water. Like, I know that's boring, but that's a really important part of my life. So,
Yeah.
What I'm eating now is my favorite thing, and nice, clean water.
Love that. Just gratitude for the food that you have in front of you.
Yeah.
So beautiful. So this question might be easier for you to answer. What is ancestral clearing?
Oh, well, Ancestral Clearing is actually a registered and trademarked energy medicine modality, complementary to all other healing modalities, that was pioneered by Howard Wills and further developed and taught by John Newton of Health Beyond Belief. I'm one of his practitioners, so anybody can learn this this particular modality. I just was so fascinated with it that I became a practitioner as soon as I could. It's a method of now you're asking me a very important question, because in order to really understand ancestral clearing, it's kind of like you're asking me to tell you, what is it like? What is ice cream? Or what is chocolate? What is, these things that are experiential in nature, we kind of have to understand what is yoga, like that. It's experiential, right? So it's hard to explain it, but we'll get into more of that. It's really based on the understanding, as spiritual teachers have been telling us for thousands of years, and now science has finally kind of begun to catch up with that we come into this life with the gifts and the burdens of our ancestors. We come in with the energy of the effects. It's not so much we're clearing intergenerational trauma, we're clearing the effects of the intergenerational trauma that wasn't resolved in the first place. Right? So it's that energy, that information that, oh, watch out for this, because, and as you come into this world, this is what we experienced, so be ready for this kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how did you first come across this ancestral clearing? Like, can you share a little bit about your background and your story that led you to this modality?
Sure. Yes, I as you said in the introduction, I had chronic pain for many, many years, and I finally found a doctor who actually understood the nature of chronic pain. All the doctors that I had been with up until then, they didn't really understand what chronic pain was, and they had no idea how to treat it other than give me opiates and benzodiazepines, which didn't help. So it's like, that's not helping. So I met Dr. Peter Prescott a little over 10 years ago, and went into his pain management program, and he detoxed me off the medication that they'd had me on. And he had this beautiful holistic program where he brought in, meditation. I was already a meditator, but when you're on medication, it dulls the effect of it, right? So meditation, kind of learning how to be present, kind of what behaviors were we doing that were contributing to our own pain, which I thought was an amazing concept in all in itself, that I had power in the pain situation. Like, I thought I was a total victim. And he asked this question, in the class, what are you doing to contribute to your pain? And the first thing in my mind was, well, I'm not doing anything. It's doing it to me. But then I realized, wait a minute, he just asked that question, which meant that he opened the possibility that I might actually be doing something that's contributing to my own pain experience, which was kind of blew my mind. And then the other thing was, he empowered me in that moment.
Interesting.
Because I had, he made that, he opened that door to say, hey, you may actually have some power here. I was like, who is this guy? I'm listening. You got my ear, right? Anyway, so a very, very interesting guy. He had he was Western trained and Eastern trained. So he had this beautiful, he had this beautiful global view of healing. And in the program, John Newton, who's the Ancestral Clearing teacher, he was the doctor's wellness practitioner. He was a wellness consultant, and he brought in Ancestral Clearing, and I had an experience of it. And I have a science background, so I was sitting in the room, as a patient, detoxing and clearing my body, but I had my analytic hat on. I was just like, I'm analyzing everything, because it's all new. And so I've got where's the data? What is the data? And how's, all this stuff. And I experienced this procedure, this modality that John brought in. And I had an effect which was interesting to me, and kind of, well, that's powerful. But everybody else in the room, there were 20 people in the room, and everyone else felt it too. And I actually felt the energy change in the room, which was that surprised me as well. So my question, I just rapid fire in my mind as soon as I saw what was happening and how everybody was being helped. I was like, is this, can you measure this? and is it repeatable? And does he teach it? And it's like, tell me all the things about this. It's just, I went into full on researcher mode, man.
I do that as well. Always like, but how? But how?
And
Yeah.
I still can't tell you the actual mechanism in the I can tell you that it's an epigenetic change. I've got that far, which is beautiful. Um,
Yeah.
and that's really sufficient for me at this point, because I've had so many other experiences with epigenetic changes in my healing journey that I'm kind of like, I check the box kind of thing. But I can't tell you what's happening in the brain and what's happening in the cell and the biochemical pathway. I can't. I'd love to be able to, but I can't. So.
Maybe one day you'll get there. You'll be able to share it with us all. So, it sounds like, yeah, an out of this world amazing experience. But can you kind of walk us through or give us a bit of an example of like what that experience is and feels like? Or
Yeah, sure. I'll give everybody a sense of it. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
so there's about 30 different kind of tools in the Ancestral Clearing practitioner toolbox. And in this format, I can share with you one, which is the one we all start with. It's the tool that John gives us in the beginning, and we could have our whole practice could be just based on that one tool. It's that powerful. So we'll do that one, and I'm just going to give you a kind of a little bit of an introduction. We use the word forgive to mean we're offering up that which no longer serves us. So this practice is about 80% this offering up that which no longer serves us, and who we offering up to, or what. We're offering it up to God, creator, the infinite, whatever power made this consciousness, whatever you want to call that energy. We're actually calling on it. So I, as a practitioner, I don't know how to do this because it's way above my pay grade. As a practitioner, I'm holding space, attuning to the audience, in this case, to the group, and how do I do that? Because all I have to do is stay present. We're all in the present moment together, and all the information is right here in the present moment. So I kind of occupy that space and do what I can to attune to the present moment. And by attuning, becoming present, I'm attuning to everyone else who's listening, and it works on the replay just as powerfully. It's really interesting. So we could talk about the quantum field and that you access past, present, and future all at once through the present moment, which is why replay works and why we can even do this work, because we can access the past through the present moment. Mm-hmm. We also affect the future through the present moment. So that's kind of an explanation of why it works. So I would, everyone listening, what I'd like you to do is just sit quietly and notice any sensation in the body. I have, just as an example, I can feel the pressure of my feet on the floor and my sitting bones on the chair. And I had dinner before this, and I feel a little fullness in my stomach. And I feel a little bit of something on my right ear. So I'm just noticing sensations. And I would like everyone to notice their sensations. And then rate the level of sensation kind of overall from 0 to 10. So you have an idea of kind of where you are. And I would like you to just let these words pass over you. We'll use the word creator, infinite creator, to represent the consciousness, God, the infinite, whatever you want to call that energy. And remembering that we use the word forgive, meaning offering up that which no longer serves us. And this will take just a few minutes. Infinite creator, all that you are, source of all that is, was, and ever will be. We ask humbly and gratefully that you help everyone listening to this and all their relationships and all of their ancestors and all their relationships throughout all space, time, dimension, realms, lifetimes, and incarnations. For all times you felt let down by family members, by life, by relationships, by anyone representing the Creator. For any time you felt let down by the Creator in any name or form. For any time you felt you turned your back on the Creator or felt the Creator turned its back on you. Please help all of you to forgive each other and forgive yourselves and be at peace with one another and at peace with yourselves, please, and thank you. For all the times you weren't nurtured, loved, supported, and cherished, please help all of you to forgive one another and forgive yourselves. For the times you didn't nurture, love, and support others in the ways they needed, and any time you were out of integrity with one another or another out of integrity with you, please help all of you to forgive one another and forgive yourselves for the highest good. Please and thank you. For all war, battle, Holocaust, genocide, persecution, slavery, injustice of any kind, oppression, misuse of power, position, authority, politically, spiritually, medically, or in any other way. Please help everyone involved to forgive and release one another, forgive and release yourselves. Now and forever, please and thank you. For all hurts and wrongs, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, sexual, financial, in thought, word, or action. All of you to another, and another to all of you. Please help all of you to forgive one another and forgive yourselves, please and thank you. For all suicide, murder, rape, abortion, infidelity, miscarriage, infertility, all of it. Everyone involved directly or indirectly. For all that happened, all you made it mean, and anytime anyone felt the energy of this in the womb, please help you all forgive one another and forgive yourselves, please and thank you. For all hurts and wrongs to the earth, the life of the earth, Native, Indigenous, First Nation people. Please help all of you to forgive one another and forgive yourselves, please and thank you. For any time you believed or were told or shown that you weren't enough. For the times you tried to realize your inherent value through work or education, in the family, in your relationships, or into the grace and love of the Creator. For any time you felt unworthy of the Creator's love. For all that led up to this and arose from this, all you made it mean. Any unhealthy and limiting beliefs, judgments, and conclusions about it. All the letdown around it. All the inverse burden, and any time any of you felt the energy of this in the womb. Please help all of you to forgive one another and forgive yourselves and be at peace with one another and at peace with yourselves, please and thank you. For all empathic hurts and wrongs, times you took on others' unresolved issues or shouldered their burdens. For all adversity, struggle, and hardship you saw, especially as children. For all dark night of the soul experiences. Please help all of you to forgive and release one another. Forgive and release yourselves. Please and thank you. For all the times you weren't shown or encouraged to stand up, speak up, and do things your way. For the times you didn't feel safe to say no when needed, or anytime anyone didn't heed your no when you said it. Please help all of you to forgive your parents and grandparents, family members, relationships. Help them all forgive you. Help you all forgive yourselves. Anytime you were attacked, blamed, judged, or misunderstood, and anytime you did this to others, please help you all forgive and release one another. Forgive and release yourselves. Please and thank you. Your whole family and lineage, please help you forgive your cousins, aunts, uncles, step-in-laws, hidden, secret, foster, adopted, and all other significant people, beings, family members, relationships, role models, and authority figures. Help you all forgive each other. Help you all forgive yourselves. Please help you all release all weight, pain, burden, sin, death, negativity, spells, hexes, curses, psychic wounds thrown or received, white magic, black magic, real or imagined. Help everyone affected here, directly or indirectly, to experience the light in each other and yourselves. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. And take a nice big breath in and let it out. and just notice how that feels and what the number is now.
Thank you. I felt so whole. Yeah, lighter.
Lighter, yeah, that's the word that people
Yeah.
people say that. It's interesting. Yeah.
I love that. Have you made like a sort of like a meditation of that where you can listen to it?
That's kind of a good idea. I haven't done that, I don't think. I did a whole thing on who are our ancestors. I've got a whole recording on that, which is kind of fun. Um,
Okay.
it's I mean, I who are our ancestors? So going all the way back to, the atoms that make us up, where they came from. They were birthed in a sun, right? In our sun, right? And
Yeah.
tracking that all the way into kind of today, so that we really have a sense of our heritage on a larger sense. Um,
Mm,
it helps me. It helps me feel more connected to consciousness, to see the bigger picture rather than kind of get stuck in my ego
yeah.
and then getting stuck in the ego for me kind of means now I'm stuck in the illusion of separation.
Mm,
So if I can, have a sense of oneness and this unity through time, um, that helps me stay out of the illusion of separateness and in, the true
mm,
vision there. Yeah, which is
mm,
the other part of ancestral clearing, by the way, is to help people wake up.
yeah. Yeah, I really loved the words that you spoke in what I'll call a ancestral clearing meditation. I think it would be so beautiful just to have them at the end of each day, just to release and reconnect. Yeah, that was beautiful. I do have a question. As like you just mentioned, what is ancestral and going back to like the atoms that we were created from. And I was thinking about this prior to having you on the podcast. So you've probably already sort of answered this in some way. But for myself, like I really don't know anything about my ancestors. And I've always felt that loss of, I guess, loss of tradition. And I think that is also why I love Eastern medicine, because it's given me like a purpose, a tradition, something to connect deeply to that feels really in align with who I am and really authentic for me. But for instance, my mother was adopted. So on her side, I don't know who, like, you know, where her ancestors come from. And then my
Mhm.
father, his both of his parents were adopted as well. And so we don't know that ancestral line. And then to make it even more confusing, like even to look into it, my grandfather, like my on my dad's side, the story was his family, besides him and his mother, they all got blown up at a train station. And then his mother couldn't, it was just him and his mother left, and his mother couldn't handle that. She then gave my pop to another lady who adopted him, but her son had died 2 years prior. And she had my pop take on her son's identity. So this whole
Oh,
time I've been like, so my maiden name Robinson, I've been like, even hyphenated when I got married because I'm a Robinson Rara. And actually, like, that's not even my ancestral name. That's been taken over from, yeah, a fan, someone who passed,
mhm.
son passed of TB, and then my pop took on that person's identity, which wasn't even his identity. So yeah, crazy
Wow.
story, but I've always felt
Mhm.
like I don't know my lineage, and I always get asked like, "What are
No.
you? What are you?" Because I'm brown, like I don't look typical Aussie,
Mhm.
and I have done some DNA testing, and it's come back all different things, and then sometimes those things disappear, which I don't know how it does if it's DNA, but yeah, just interested in how it works when you have no idea of your lineage and your ancestral heritage?
Well, it's a very interesting question, and I do work with adopted um, um, children. I have several friends that are adopted, and they've asked this question, and I've written in. There's a 6-book series called that's kind of the title of the whole series is The Ancestors Within, and then there's just different subtitles for each one. And the woman that led that is adopted. The woman that led, there's really the lead author on that, Amy Gillespie, is a and she's an ancestral eye reader, which is a whole other. You should have her on. It's amazing. That's a whole other thing. But
that would be interesting. I'd love that. Everyone.
One of the things that we're asked this question. I'm asked this question: how do I connect into them? And my answer is, they're with you. The information from your ancestors is in your bones. They're with us now. And so I've actually been in, because I didn't know a lot of my ancestors either. They died in the war and things like that. But I've sat in meditation and gotten very still. And I've gotten a download. Like I got the download that I think it was my great-grandfather died from typhus. And it turns out we have family records, and it turns out he did. And, that's like, wow, right? How does that, or I think it was typhoid, because it's too mixed up, typhoid fever. He died from that. That came to me, and I was like, wow. So that was interesting. It's just a little example of that. And I'll tell you, talk about meditation. I'll give everybody this gift because it was given to me. It's a kind of a version of Carolyn Mace's meditation at a well, and I just changed it a little bit. Imagine that you're sitting quietly by a pond. It's a small pond. It's a beautiful summer day, quiet, and the temperature's just right, and the water is still it's just as still as glass. And you're sitting beside this pond, and you take there's a stone right beside you, and you pick up the pebble, put it in your hand, and you put your question, your intention, your question into the pebble, which in this case would be, who are my ancestors? And take the pebble and whoop, toss it into the pond. Now, this is all visual. This is not a real pond. This is just your imagining. Toss it into the pond, see the water splash up and ripple out, and then just get really still and wait. And you'll get an answer. You might not get the answer that you want, but you're going to get an answer. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to do that one. When my DNA came back, there was like a lot of English, Irish, Scandinavian, and I just didn't feel connected to any of that, and I don't look like any of that, those heritage. And then another DNA, at first when it came back, it also had a bit of Italian in it, but then that disappeared. I don't understand how it can disappear. And then another platform my mother-in-law used came back with Spanish and Romanian. And I've always felt like my mum, she was a flamenco dance teacher. My parents both learnt Spanish. Like there's always been like these strong sort of Spanish sort of feels. Anytime I've been overseas, I always get spoken to in Spanish. So I kind of felt that sort of more what I was connected to, but I've just never known, like never, yeah.
Well, you might find if you bring this into your meditation, into the stillness, field of stillness, you might find some information and your bones say, oh, yes, and you'll recognize it. It's very interesting, just kind of doing that exercise in stillness, because there's just a ton of information in that space. And yeah, so I encourage everyone to drop your judgments, just open to the space and just wait and be still and just kind of see what shows up. Like, I'm sure you're breathing, through it and stuff, but yeah, it's a very powerful space, and really, I do private sessions on in ancestral clearing, and it's really interesting the kinds of things that kind of drop in to the present moment about kind of for the situation. Now the process, there's all these different ways that we can kind of get at the burden. And we would access the body. In your case, we was like, well, where do you feel? We would start there with like, well, where do you feel? I don't know where my ancestors, I don't know who they were. Where do you feel the kind of the conflict of that? I wish I did, and I don't. That we would start there, and that's a lot of information, right? The body will guide us to. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Interesting. And are there any other specific rituals or practices that individuals can incorporate into their daily lives to support the ongoing effects of ancestral clearing and maintaining a connection with their ancestral energy? I know that the meditation you just mentioned is beautiful, and I'm definitely going to do that one, but is there any other sort of daily rituals or practices?
Well, for me, it was really helpful to just really get in the habit of being present. I just, because most of my time I was either in the past or the future. It's just the way I was raised, where I'm always pushing for the next goal, or comparing now to the last thing, or it's just like, right, as a scientist, we're not really, we're always, that training is very mental, which is, it is what it is, and it has its power, but the richness of the present moment is to be embodied, and integrated, right? Embodied. And that's so you're not only just sitting quietly in meditation there, but you're actually training the body to be present. And if you can do that during the day, you'll find that your whole world opens up, and you're going to be seeing things that you didn't see before. You'll be noticing things, and to me, it's like there's all kinds of signs and kind of pointers and guides and things that are in the present moment that I miss. I see them now, but I don't always get them. I don't always see them now. It depends on how busy my mind is. But getting used to being in the present moment and just staying here without an agenda is a very now, that meditation I took you through, that's an agenda. I have this intention. I'm looking for this thing, right? But you put that into the field, and then you let it go, and you just stay open and see what's there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Like, silence can speak louder than words sometimes, just from what we can perceive from that moment, or feel really from that moment. Talking more on like the ancestral clearing aspects, and talking about like the time and space, how does a concept of time and space, that role in ancestral clearing, especially when we address issues that may have been passed down through generations, can healing extend backward and forward in time? Like how does that sort of, what I'm trying to ask?
Well, I'll tell you what I heard. Yeah. So I heard my ancestral clearing teacher talk about this, and I heard Howard talk. I took John and Howard have talked about this when they they do their group stuff, and when John teaches. But I was kind of like, I want the grounding, and I want it grounded, So for me, it's I always have my science hat is kind of, there's a part of me that's kind of always there, and quantum physics actually points us to this concept, which I talked about in the beginning. Through the present moment, we have access to the past and the future all at once. So when we do this work, because we're doing it in the present moment and the client is in the present moment, we have access to the whole lineage. And when we clear something, it clears it for the whole lineage, front and back. It's very interesting. And like I said, it's kind of like, what's ice cream and what's chocolate, because you have to experience in order. And everybody that heard the clearing probably felt something, felt a shift of some kind. And that's that's a taste of I mean, that, and also there's you can listen to the replay on this and hear that prayer again and again.
Yeah.
And and you'll continue to get clearing, because we carry lots and lots of burden. We, the effects that we didn't, our ancestors were so busy surviving. I don't know that they had these kinds of tools.
Yeah. Absolutely. And how, I suppose this may be a really new concept to a lot of people, but the more that it gets out there and people practice like your beautiful prayer meditation and ancestral clearing, how can ancestral clearing contribute to broader collective healing and transformation, both on a personal and societal level, do you feel?
You took the words right out of my mouth, because that was the next thing I was going to talk about. That's great. Yeah. So my question, and I put this out to everyone, because I want everybody to think, I would love it if everybody would ponder this question, take it into meditation, put it in your pebble and toss it in the pond, right? How do we get out of the cycle of trauma as a race, as humanity? How do we get out of the cycle of trauma? Right. So part of the answer of that is clear the burden that we carry. So ancestral clearing is a big piece of it. This is one way that you can get at that. Yoga is another way. There's lots of ways that you can really, there are a number of paths to doing that. This is just one of them. And the other is to wake up, which is another part of ancestral clearing, is to help people awaken from the dream of separation, right? This illusion that we're separate. There's this, yours and mine and theirs and us and them and that kind of stuff. If we could just kind of get, so those are two answers that I have, but I'd like to hear everybody else's. So that's a question that I really kind of have in my mind, in the back of my mind all the time. It's just, I'm always, would that work here? What would, and the other thing that I do is I sit in meditation and I imagine what it would be like for us to all be out of the cycle of trauma. What would the world, what would it feel like? Who would it sound like?
Yeah, I wouldn't even know. It's a hard concept.
It is, but the thing is that I feel like we won't get there until we ask the question and believe that we can. Right.
Yeah.
So, that's what I'm putting out there. That's a mission statement.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I really loved this conversation. Yeah, just so interesting. And yeah, you've very thought-provoking. I've got a lot of things to think about myself. Are there any things that we haven't covered that you would like to bring up and speak to in regards to?
Yeah, so really, but between kind of now and being out of the cycle of trauma, there's this middle ground that I would also like to, see happen, and ancestral clearing could be a piece of it, and the awakening could be a piece of it, and that would be kind of reparations for, the wrongs that have been done one culture to another. Like a recognition, an actual recognition, and some kind of, ground where everybody meets and has a generative conversation around that, and actually helps us move forward. I just think it's super important. I don't know how we're gonna. We have to do something different than what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Truth. Yeah. And I think these conversations are starting that. They're starting the awareness, at least,
Mhm.
been playing a small part, but it's a part nevertheless. So
Well,
thank you so
can
much.
you imagine if we had, uh, two of the most powerful world leaders go through, ancestral clear their own burden before they get in the room to negotiate? So they're not
Yeah.
projecting their own stuff into the situation, that they're looking through these clearer eyes, that they're not carrying the burden of all the stuff that happened. Imagine how different it would be.
It would be a completely different world, wouldn't it? Like a completely different outcome, because the way that they're perceiving things reflects on the decisions they make, the outcomes for the whole world. So it'd be a completely different place. But I guess we can only start with ourselves. So we might
Exactly.
not be able to say, hey, world leaders, come here. We've got something for you. But we can definitely start with ourselves. We can
Mhm.
definitely start to share our knowledge with others and, you know, point people in the right direction if they're up for that. And I think that's what we can do from here, at least,
Mm.
very
Yeah.
least. Yeah, thank you so much. You've been wonderful and sharing a lot of beautiful wisdom on this topic. Like I said, so interesting to me because it's well out of my realms of scope of practice, and I really enjoy learning other modalities and other healing practices. So I appreciate your time. Is there anywhere in particular where people can go to find out more about your offerings, your ancestral clearing?
Oh, certainly you can find me at I should have put that, I should have put that up on the thing. Yes, you can find me at my website, which is Elizabeth with a dash between it, Kipp.com.
Yeah.
Elizabeth dash Kipp, Kipp.com. You can find me all over social media. You can book a session through my website, and or find me on instant message, LinkedIn, wherever. And
Yeah.
I'm happy to reach out, and I'm happy to talk to anybody.
Beautiful. And I will be putting your website link in the show notes as well. So
Perfect.
easy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to all of our beautiful listeners. We really appreciate you helping us spread all of this information near, far, and wide. Namaste.